So you'll see behind me a web address, a link, where when you're at home or even in the classroom, you can type that in and it'll connect you to our class. Almost everything I do in this class is at some point they're going to wind up on my screen here, on that screen, and on your screen at home. It'll look exactly the same way. You'll hear exactly the same thing. I'm recording this right now as we're progressing. This recording, I'll be converting it and I'll be putting it on YouTube and put a link on Blackboard. So, as I said before, 15 years from now, if the kids are acting up and you need entertainment, you can come back and watch this. You can watch it anytime you want. If you can't attend the class on say Monday night, and you aren't, it's such that you can't also view this live while we're broadcasting it, like now, you can time shift it. You can actually watch it anytime you want. Okay, however, you need to keep up with this course. This course is the kind of course where each week you progress, and each week is built on what you learned the week before. So if you start to fall behind, especially with a compressed course like this, where we're doing it in 8 weeks instead of 16 weeks, it can get pretty hard to catch up. And these departments now, they're very tough on incompletes. It's like you need like you need a writ from the Pope to get an incomplete these days. Okay, in fact, the rules now are that at least literally you can only get an incomplete if you don't need an incomplete. In other words, you have to complete the entire course and only miss like the absolute last thing, like a final or whatever. That's what they're doing at School of Public Health. Yeah. So it might be a little less rigorous here, but it is, you have to justify an incomplete. And I didn't feel like finishing the course is not justification for the incomplete. You need a reason for it. Okay, has to be approved by your advisor and your department head. Okay, so keep up with the work. I really can't emphasize that enough. And if you're having problems, you're falling behind, let me know. And I got all sorts of other videos and ways to help you and stuff like that. So, but I need to know. You need to, you have to stay in touch with me. So that's the link where you can connect anywhere in this classroom, at home. When we're doing this class between 5:05 and 7:50 or whatever it is, whatever the exact time range is. When we're doing this and broadcasting here, that's the link that you would go to, and you'd see exactly what you see on behind me and on your screen as well, and you'd hear my voice as well. So, and then again, you can go back and watch that again if you want, or if you miss it, you can watch the recording of it. Okay, so I'm gonna quickly run through. I posted a video which is kind of an introduction to online courses, because for a lot of people this is the first time they're doing this. Okay. Let me see where I got it. There it is. Okay, I'll edit out the areas of dead silence. You ever notice that you listen to people on the radio, they never stop talking? Right. There's a thing, I guess, I guess there's some understanding among radio broadcasters. You can't have dead air. You can't stop talking. That's why a lot of stuff you hear on the radio is nonsense, because they got to keep talking. Whatever comes out of their mouth is what's going to come out of their mouths. If you ever watch a baseball game, you really catch that, because they just talk about anything that they can think of. Okay, so biostatistics. This course is called Fundamentals of Biostatistics. It's an introductory course. PH 750 is intended for people that really don't have a background in biostatistics. If you have it, you don't have to have taken biostatistics before. It helps if you had any kind of background in biostatistics, even going back to like undergraduate or high school or something like that. It helps to have a little bit of a math background. It also helps to be comfortable with computers, because these days, most statistics is done using programs that are what you call vertical programs. They're programs specifically designed to do one thing very well. And we're going to be working with one of them. Do we know if SPSS is going to be free? We're going to talk about that. We'll talk about how to access it. Okay, my name is Tony DeVito. I actually graduated from this program in 1855, a long time ago. And I've been an adjunct for the last 22 years or something like that. You know the expression, always a bridesmaid, never a bride? Well, that's me. I'm always an adjunct, never a professor. So at any rate, my email address is adevito@hunter.cuny.edu. I can reply to emails within 24 to 48 hours, no problem, usually within 24. However, I need to ask you to, anytime you send me an email, put the course number in the subject line, PH750. My mail program automatically highlights anything that has that in the subject line, so I can't miss it, right? Otherwise, like you, we all get so much spam and everything else. If you have an odd email address or something like that, it automatically might send it into spam and so on. And I could easily miss it. So if you do that, I won't miss it.
Do you want them to use their Hunter email?
You can use any email you want. As long as you put that in the subject line, I'll get the email. Okay, so I was in environmental occupational health science, right? That was a track that we had here a while ago. It now moved over with School of Public Health to another building. How many of you guys know what Legionnaire's disease is? Yeah, that's what I'm active with right now, or have been up until the time. I retired from my day job in August, and I still get, I think I call back there every once in a while because they were a company that cleaned and disinfected cooling towers and treated cooling towers. And that's one of the sources for Legionnaire's disease. And in fact, I'm working with the Department of Health a little bit. I have a little bit of a consulting arrangement with the Department of Health to review some documents that they're preparing for water treatment companies, because they know me as a person that worked at a water treatment company. So they figure if I can give them some sort of input where the water treatment companies won't automatically scream, "This is impossible, you don't know what you're saying, you don't know how our business runs." So I've been doing a little bit of work with them. But that was my main interest in the last few years, was Legionnaire's disease. Okay, so as far as materials, course materials, we're meeting twice a week. We're meeting on Monday night and Wednesday night at the same time. I will be here each Monday and Wednesday night. So I told you that these recordings are very good because you can always go back and catch me in live. So I just lied right there. Next week, I will be out of town. So the next two sessions are going to be online only. Right now, I will try, if I can get a good internet connection, I will try to, at 5:05, go live for at least an hour. I'll post some recorded videos from previous semesters, some other stuff that I've prepared for other courses, online courses. I'll post that so you can follow the material, but I'll try and get online at 5:05 for at least an hour, so you get a chance to interact with me live, and we can exchange information. You can ask questions, and I can keep track of how you're keeping up. So, but normally every Monday and Wednesday, I'll be in here doing exactly what we're doing now. Okay, every once in a while also, as we get closer to an exam, I'll pick out a weekend day or an evening or something like that when I'll have a helper review session. So since when we used to teach down at Brookdale, you remember this, at 25th Street, and students used to ask me, "Where's your office?" Well, as an adjunct, I used to tell my office is parked at a meter on 2nd Avenue, because I didn't really have an office per se. So it was a little bit difficult to meet with students and so on, and also because I'm only here, when the class, usually only here when the class is going on. However, I can always turn up a little early or a little late, but I also offer between exams and as we get closer to exams, I'll have helper review sessions online. So on a Saturday morning or something like that, or an evening, I'll go online, and if you want to join me, it's voluntary. You can join me online, and if you have questions, I'll set up a place in the discussions forum where you can post questions that I'll address during that online session. If you are available, you can actually type in the chat box or talk online with me and so on, and I'll record those sessions so that other students or yourself, you can always go back and benefit from it as well. Okay, now you do know we're going to have 2 exams, exam 1 and exam 2, and at the end of the semester, the very last session, you'll have a choice of taking a 3rd exam or doing a project. So if you're taking the course online, it's kind of hard to show up and actually do a presentation. You can actually choose to take the exam or do a written presentation only. But I would greatly prefer if you do the presentation instead of the exam, because that gives you a chance to actually apply the principles that we learned and to a set of data and analyze that data, do a little background research on it, and so on and so forth. It's not a capstone or a thesis or anything like that. It's a simple project. It's not going to be that much time, but it gives you an opportunity to really get your hands on this stuff once you've actually learned how to use the software and how to apply the statistical tests we're going to be learning. So I'm going to be encouraging you to do a project, but I'm not going to hold a gun to your head. You're not going to have to do it if it's really difficult or inconvenient for you. Okay. So brick and mortar, online, hybrid courses. What do we mean by that? Okay, brick and mortar. We're in brick and mortar right now. Because we're sitting here, we're in a physical facility. You actually come to the class, you show up, we have a discussion, a lecture, lab, and so on and so forth, and then we all go home. And you can take the course that way. If you prefer, you can come in here every week, except next week, remember. And we can actually do the classes as if we were in the 1960s when I was in college. Okay, so there's a brick and mortar. Okay, that's what it looks like. Okay, you can take the course online. Okay, so in other words, you could sit at your computer and actually see recorded videos if you want. You don't have to tune in at a specific time, but I will be recording and broadcasting at a specific time because some students are going to want to do this as a brick and mortar course. So you can tune in at that time, watch the lecture, watch the labs, take part in it and so on. Or you can wait for the recording within a day or two, and you can then view the recordings and be able to work on the assignments and literally do all the work people are doing in class here, you can do online. Now, one little twist on that, yeah, it's all in the cloud. That's what that's all about. Okay, so if I have a good picture, I'm going to use it, so get used to that. So at any rate, the hybrid part of this is an arrangement that we've done with some classes where the problem with online courses is that it's difficult to administer tests with an online course. It's also difficult to have presentations where students can view other students' work, they can present their own work, and so on. So that's difficult to do. So we have a version of this called a hybrid, where you come in 4 times, physically required to come in 4 times. The first session, like now, so we can explain all this, the 2 exams, and the last either exam or presentation. Now, online, I will be preparing an exam that you can take online. Typically, the way it's going to be set up, you'll log on to Blackboard. You'll be able to take the exam online on Blackboard and submit it. It'll be timed. It'll be 2 or 3 hours. It'll be timed just as if you are taking an exam here in the classroom. Those exams also will be on Blackboard. You'll just be using these monitors. Won't be using pen and paper except for whatever notes or calculations you want to do on the side. They're open book exams. You can bring anything you want, right? You can use anything that's on Blackboard. You can reference anything that's on Blackboard or linked to from Blackboard. You can't work with someone else. You can't discuss it with someone else. You can't communicate with other students and so on and so forth, but you can literally anything else that we have that's a resource as part of the class you'll be able to use. Okay, so it'll be open book. The only problem with that is very difficult to enforce. There are all sorts of things nowadays where real online courses, they actually use the cameras in the computers to watch you as you're taking the course. They have test centers where you go into a convenient spot, take the test with a proctor, and the test is preloaded on that device. But we don't have that facility, at least not yet. So I have to trust you to be fair to the other students and to yourself. And usually you guys are public health people, your ethics usually are pretty good just because you're getting into this field. So I got to tell you, I haven't had much of a problem with that. Okay, otherwise everybody getting 100. Trust me, not everybody's getting 100 on these tests, right? So I know they got to be somewhat honest. So at any rate, so that's the deal on that. Okay, it's and that's the reason for the hybrid. Occasionally some instructors, some advisors, some departments want you to come in for the test, so it can be basically a proctored test. That's really the difference between the fully online and the hybrid. But you're always welcome to come in here anytime you want. Okay, yeah, don't fall behind. Time management is everything in here, especially in the summertime with this compressed course. We're gonna basically what you can learn about is how to analyze, how to organize, analyze, present numerical data that's generally associated with health, public health, epidemiology, and so on and so forth, and also to apply certain statistical tests to it. So you can determine whether or not one population is different from another population. whether or not one drug, of the efficacy of one drug different than another drug, and so on. So how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to use a variety of tools. You're going to get used to these numbers. We're going to do a little bit of, we're going to be working with a little bit of probability. We're going to learn about normal distributions. We're going to learn about hypothesis testing, t-tests, statistical significance, p-values, sampling. We're going to learn about regression. We're going to learn about correlation. We're going to learn about odds ratio. How many of you guys these things sound familiar? When you read an abstract, they'll say something like the blood lead level of the children in this study was 5.3 parts per billion, confidence interval 4.8 to 6.3. Sound familiar? Kind of seen that kind of stuff? Well, you're going to understand that now. By the end of this semester, you will absolutely positively, I guarantee you will understand. When you read an abstract, you will understand what those statistics mean. Okay, so how are we going to do all this? How we're going to function here? Well, we're going to mostly be using software. Okay, and there's two principal pieces of software that you need here, besides a word processing program. Just to be able to submit some documents every once in a while. One of them is Excel. How many of you guys are comfortable with Excel or with a spreadsheet program? When I say comfortable, you really like using it. Okay, good. All right. Yeah, exactly. Diane, unfortunately, has been forced to learn how to use a spreadsheet program. So I like hearing that, because I will start from ground zero. Well, today we're even going to start talking about how to use a spreadsheet program, how to enter data into it, what goes into those cells, and how to embed formulas in there. So I'm glad I brought that up and asked you about that, because I think we really need to go over that. Now, Excel is a great general use numeric program. People use it for finance. They use it for just organizing names and addresses, departments, courses, and so on and so forth. Other people use it for engineering calculations, designing airplanes, bridges, you name it. Has a million uses. One of the uses is statistical. There are actually functions built into Excel that allow you to do very sophisticated calculations in a number of different industries, from engineering to finance to business to statistics, in fact. So we have a collection of functions buried in Excel that you don't know about yet, because you wouldn't know about them unless you actually started to use them, that we're going to be able to take advantage of it. The other program we're going to use is called SPSS. That's Statistical Program for the Social Sciences. Okay, it's currently owned by IBM. They bought it up about 10 years ago, so they own it, they maintain it. It's one of the 2 or 3 most popular statistical programs. Like I said, it's basically a class of software called a vertical programs. Excel spread out, you can use it for a lot of stuff. This software, SPSS, is only useful as a statistical program, but it's very sophisticated and very good at what it does. Okay, so it's specifically going to be for us to do statistical tests. The program costs somewhere between, just the base version of the program costs somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500, and we don't require you to have it until the 3rd week. So actually, you probably figured out that's not going to happen here, right? So you can actually buy student versions of it. You can download it, install it on your computer, and you can buy a license for either 6 months or 12 months. A 6-month license, which obviously more than we would need, it goes for like $35 or $40 at the worst. However, there is another notorious a bunch of bandits that left here and took all the EOHS instructors and ran away. And they are fortunate enough to be able to get a license for it as part of their, I guess, part of their technology fees or something like that. Well, unless maybe they have some other arrangement. Tell you the truth, I don't understand how they could have it and it couldn't be CUNY wide. So it doesn't make any sense.
Tech site and see, I didn't look there.
Yeah.
The tech site for Hunter as a student lists all, not just these,
yeah,
all the software that's available to you for free.
Yeah, I think you can get Microsoft Word for free. You might Microsoft Office, the base version, for free. This, I think it sends you to a link that'll take to IBM, and it'll have 3 places where you can buy it, buy that 6-month license for from $35 to $50 or something like that, depending on which you choose. I'll be giving you some advice on which version you should choose. For starters, buy the version for your machine. In other words, make sure if you got a Mac, make sure you get the Mac version. Got a PC, make sure you get the PC version. The versions that student versions we're going to use are called grad pack, student version, student grad pack version. There's a couple of them. There's the base grad pack version and there's a full grad pack version. The difference is about $15. The only difference functionally for us is that the more expensive, slightly more expensive one, the $50-ish one, that one has linear regression. Linear regression is an advanced topic. They have all sorts of courses in linear regression. We're going to discuss last week or two, we're going to discuss correlation and simple linear regression. I'm sorry. And but the slightly more expensive version has logistic regression. Logistic regression is a bit more complicated. It doesn't come in the cheaper version, the $35, $40 version. You got to buy the more expensive version. Where I'm going to introduce it to you, show it to you, so you know. Somebody says to you at a party, says, "Oh, do you know what do you know what logistic regression is?" You can say yes. That's basically all you're going to be able to say about logistic regression. You'll have an idea what it is for this course. When you go on to take more advanced courses, it's going to be an important thing if you do. Most people in this course, most people take 750 are probably going to be taking nursing and other courses, not likely to take more advanced, specifically biostatistics courses. There are other versions of this course we used to offer. Maybe they still do 751 or there's another one, Bio 611. Those are versions of the same course, except they're geared to people who are going to be taking more advanced courses, prepping them for more exams. We don't have to worry about that though. Okay, so if you want to save a few bucks, you can get the cheapest version that you can. But if you're really getting into it and you're interested, you can get a little bit more expensive version. And I'll introduce it. And I can even give you links to a dozen YouTube videos where you can actually learn a little bit more about it. Okay, so that's the principal difference. So you're going to need Excel and SPSS. That program R that was over there that kind of was by that I kind of ignored, that's an open source program. Open source meaning it's free, but it's free with like some caveats. In other words, people have contributed their time to develop this program, and other people contribute to it regularly. They expand it, they make it bigger, they put add-ons onto it, and so on and so forth. That program R is one of those open source programs. You can download it and use it for free. R itself, it is a little bit difficult to use because you kind of have to type instructions into it. However, there are other people that have made overlays for it. So you can kind of have almost like a similar kind of interface that more sophisticated programs have, like a drop menu and stuff like that. However, it still takes a bit more to learn how to use. So if you're interested in R, you can download it, play around with it and stuff like that. But I suggest that unless you're really into spending some time with this, that you stick with SPSS for actually the work we're doing in the class. Okay, so I'll be supporting Excel and SPSS. If you decide you want to really learn R, you're going to learn R, you want to use it in this class, it's perfectly okay for you to do that. Except I won't have the time to really hold your hand with it if you have problems and stuff. Okay, but if you feel comfortable doing this stuff, by all means. Okay, what do you need to know? Basically, just what you walked in here with. Okay, I'm not going to assume, especially now, I'm not going to assume you know much about Excel or SPSS. Hopefully, you have a little bit of a math background. You want to be able to use a computer, feel comfortable with a computer. You need to be able to access Blackboard. Everything we do is going to go through Blackboard. The discussions forums, the sessions, the assignments, even the exams are going to be on Blackboard. So you got to be able to get on your web browser, get onto Blackboard regularly, and check it regularly as well. Check it several times a week at least, right? You're going to be checking it twice a week because we have 2 sessions a week anyway, but check it even more often to make sure that you're keeping up with what's going on. Microsoft Office, that's I believe free for you guys if you want to download it and install it on your machines. Okay, and SPSS. Okay, how's this whole thing going to work?
Which is also, I think, on one or more of the computers.
All of the computers here, all of the computers at every CUNY facility at 68th Street on the 10th floor there, all of the library computers all have SPSS, R, Word, and Excel on them. So if you need to get to any of this stuff, you can do that. Hi, have a seat. Okay, so What is this course going to consist of? Okay, so it's going to be brick and mortar. I'm going to be here. I'm going to give you a lecture, and I'm going to actually do some lab work. I'll have some examples that you'll be able to work through. I'll give you some data. You'll be able to work on these computers as we're talking, and you're watching me run through a problem up here. You can mimic what I'm doing and get used to it. Okay, kind of like holding you remember a kid that would hold the seat as you roll. So maybe the labs are a little bit kind of like that. Yeah, but then you want to go home, and you want to actually practice this stuff as well, just like anything else. If you only ride a bike once a year, you're not going to be very good at it after a while. Okay, so so we're going to have lectures, labs, lectures here. There's going to be assignments. Technically, I think we list 6 assignments, but really it's a bit more because, for instance, as we progress, if assignment 3 is about hypothesis testing, you may see it listed as assignment 3A, 3B, and 3C, because 3A would be about one kind of hypothesis testing, say like a single sample t-test, for instance. 3B might be about independent samples t-test. 3C might be about a paired sample t-test, right? There's 3 different areas, and I'll break that up so that it's a little easier for you to digest instead of giving you one assignment 3, and you kind of you can kind of get lost in hypothesis testing because a lot of different ways to apply it. You got to complete the homeworks. Now, what's not visible in the syllabus? In syllabus, it describes this draconian system where if you're 2 minutes late on the homework, you lose 10 points. If you're 3 minutes, you get a 0 for the homework. Okay, I really, in order to encourage you to keep up with the homework assignments, which is kind of the key to this whole thing, right? What I do is I put a due date on the homework. If you make an attempt, you can have multiple attempts. I set it up so you can have multiple attempts. If you make an attempt at the homework by the due date, you can go back anytime in the rest of the semester, redo that homework until you get 100%. I've had some students go back and do homework 6, 7 times until they just kept plugging away at it until they got 100%. Okay, no dishonor in that, because by the time you're done, you know how to do that homework. Okay, but the key here is, you heard the first part. I want you to make an attempt, right? That's the trade-off. You make that attempt. Now you could get 10% on it. I don't care, 30%. At least I know, at least when I see what you get on it, I know I got to go back over that stuff. And you know you got to go back over that stuff. And I know that maybe if the whole class is struggling, I know I need to go over that stuff again. Okay, so it's really important to me that I can see you progressing. So that's why I encourage this. And it's really important for you guys too, because if you start to fall behind, you get 2, 3 homeworks behind, and we really apply zeros to all that stuff, you might as well just stay home. And I don't want you staying home, right? At least not unless you're watching it online, right? So that's the way that deal works. So we all understand that, right? You got to attend. It's a due date, but the due date doesn't mean I have to be 100% right on it by this time. I have to make the effort and try it. Okay. And you notice there I also mentioned that last session of the semester, you'll have a choice of taking a 3rd exam or completing a project. When we're done with the 2nd exam, we'll look forward. In other words, don't worry about that now. When we're done with the 2nd exam, we'll have 4 or 5 weeks left. What am I saying? We'll have 2 or 3 weeks left. Remember, everything I say is going to be half, right? We'll have 2 or 3 weeks left, and it'll be enough time for you to get your head around which one you want to do. Okay, 15 weekly sessions, except our weekly sessions are twice a week, right? So compress that into 7.5 weeks or 8 weeks. Okay, everything is going to be on Blackboard. Critical that you'll be able to access it. Okay, this is what Blackboard looks. How many of you guys have never used Blackboard before? Everybody's used it? Okay, good. How many of you guys first semester at Hunter? Nobody. How'd you wind up coming here for so long without taking biostatistics, the introductory biostatistics? Oh, you were undergrads. Okay, so you've been here. Oh, wow. Okay. All right, good. So that's what Blackboard looks like. Ours is a little bit of an offshoot on that. Hopefully you'll be organized enough that you'll be able to get around on it pretty easily. Okay, so access to Blackboard. Textbook. Textbook is also an open source textbook. It's free to download. It's in its 3rd edition. It was developed by 3 statisticians initially, and people have kind of contributed to it, did corrections, expanded it, and so on and so forth. It's just like a regular, it's just as good as any commercial textbook that we've been using. And it also has problems in the back of each chapter, and many of the problems have solutions with them too. Minimum, they have answers, but for most of them, they actually have the step-by-step solution to them also. So the textbook, I'll be assigning readings in the textbook, but I'm not going to check to make sure you read it or anything like that. But you should maybe keep an eye on the textbook and read it in parallel to the material that we're doing in class. And I'll give you the sections before class that we're going to be covering. Okay, so there's the textbook, Open Intro Statistics, and there's the website, openintro.org is the website where you can go to download it. They also, on that website, they also have videos for each chapter in the textbook. So you can actually see their videos for the material that's in the textbook that we're going to be using as well, besides my videos. Okay, that's what this is actually a page, a couple of pages from the textbook. So you look at it, it looks like a real textbook. You can download it as a PDF version for free. You can buy it from the bookstore, from Amazon, and I think something called CreateSpace or something like that. There are 3 or 4. When you go to openintro.org, you'll see the links to where you can buy it from. They have it on Amazon. You can buy, I think, a color version for under $30, or you can buy a black and white version for under $20. Right? And I think there's a couple of places that might even be cheaper than that. Okay, so it's your choice if you want to use it as a PDF file. I like using it as a PDF file a lot because, you know, PDF files you can search on a PDF file. So if I'm looking for a specific topic, like chi-square, I can just type in chi-square and it'll list for me the pages where that information is. So, but if you're more comfortable with something, having something on paper in front of you. Okay, Excel, presumably it's free for you guys. If it isn't free and you're really strapped for money, there are some places where you can get open source versions of Microsoft Office programs. Okay, let me know if you have a problem like that with software. And that's what SPSS looks like. It kind of looks like a spreadsheet, but it's different. You're gonna see when we get to that point. You're gonna see why it's different. There's our 6-month license. I don't know how up to date this is. Actually, if you go to the IBM site, and what I would do is hold off for a day or two. Normally, I'd be telling you, go home and you download it tonight. But I would say hold off for just like one day so I can resolve whether or not there's an opportunity for us to get it for free. If it isn't, and I'm going to be emailing, I'll put up an announcement. Whenever I put up an announcement on Blackboard, I also broadcast it to all your email addresses. That's another point. Make sure that the email address that you have on Blackboard as your default email address is one that you check regularly. Because I know if you never check your Hunter email address, and that's the one you have there, you just check your Gmail, well, that's going to be a problem because then you'll never see my announcements, you'll never see my emails, my responses to your emails, and so on. So make sure that's and you can change that default email. If you want to use your Gmail address, you use your Gmail address. That's a little sticky. Some instructors would prefer you keep it your Hunter address, but you know, for this class, I don't care what you use as long as it's an email address that you check frequently. Okay, so I'll check to see if it's available without paying for it. But again, worst case, it'd be like $35 or $40. One of the other requirements in this course, although it's not the case with you guys, for a lot of people, and historically, this has been it's a core course, it's an introductory course, and a lot of other courses, like EPI courses, you often have this as a prerequisite. So for a lot of people in various programs, in this part of this course is completing a certificate program, an online certificate program in ethics and human research. Okay, and that's run by an organization called cityprogram.org. That's literally their address. When you go there, you register. You put down your institution as CUNY, and you can go through various series of steps where you'll identify yourself, you'll put in information, you'll register in the course, and so on. And it'll give you the opportunity to take a number of free online courses. The one you're looking for is a graduate certificate. Could be either medically related or social science related, but it's got to be a graduate student's version or higher program in ethics and human research. So what is this all about? Well, there's a good chance that as you progress through this program, you're either going to handle data that involves that was collected from human subjects, or you're going to be actually involved, with a research project where the research project is dealing with human subjects. So you're required to have this in order to participate in those kind of programs. Okay, so that's required part of this course. Technically, you don't have to do it until the end of the semester because I need that to give you a grade at the end of the semester. But let me think. This is a nice weekend. It's going to rain. It's probably going to be miserable weather. It's raining outside probably right now, and not too much else is going on. You haven't, nobody's assigned any homeworks yet. Do it now, right? Because it'll take you like 4 to 6 hours. You read through these modules, right? Like kind of like taking the SAT test. Read through a module, and at the end of the module, you'd be asked to answer 3 or 4 questions, multiple choice questions. If you get like 80%, you move on to the next. Actually, you can move on to the next one. You can go back and retake it over and over again as much as you need to. Overall, you have to go through all of the modules. There might be a dozen of them. You have to go through all of the modules until you get an average of 80% across the board. But it could take you 4 to 6 hours to do this. If you're a fast reader and you can skim through this stuff pretty quickly, you can do it a little bit less. But it could take 4 to 6 hours. Last thing you need is when you're studying for the exam, final exam the next night, or you have other courses at the end of the 8 weeks, and you're really busy. Last thing you need is to have to worry about this. So try and get this out of the way early, so that way it's done, and it's actually pretty interesting stuff. You'll read about the Tuskegee study and the all sorts of. There's some newer studies that involve genetic research where they've had disasters and the way people have misused even just information and data. So there's really a lot of interesting stuff that's on there. Okay, so free online course, 3 to 6 hours probably will take you. The institution is CUNY. You got to make sure you put in CUNY as your institution. You want a certificate for graduate students in social behavioral science, or if it's a medical, if there's some other area, as long as it's a graduate level or better. They're actually good for 3 years now. Yes. Yeah, I'm going to have a place on Blackboard. I didn't put it there yet because I didn't anticipate you'd be ready to do it. But if you have it, they expire in 3 years, right? So in the past, they've told me that if you've taken it within the past year, that you can use an existing certificate. Okay. Now that was back in the days when they expired in a year. But if you have more than a year on it left, if you upload it, that'll be good enough for me. Okay. If you have less than a year on it, that you, instead of taking the whole course all over again, you can take a refresher, which will take like half the time, and then you can upload the refresher certificate. Okay. Okay, this is kind of what it looks like, or what it used to look like. It might be a little bit different now. There's a version of this where they actually list the modules instead. Okay, so, in-class attendance is not required if you're taking this as an online student. We are having a little bit of debate right now about whether the nutrition students are required to turn up brick and mortar or hybrid or something like that, but I'll resolve that within the next few days. Okay, hi. Okay. Okay, I think we beat this to death. Okay, voluntary. Oh yeah, like I said, I have occasional help and review session. That's not me. That guy's scary. That's not, that guy? No, okay, good. Blackboard. Oh, the discussions board. Since many of us will never be back in this classroom again, and I haven't looked, but there may be people that have logged on since we started that are listening to me right now as we speak and looking at the screen that we're seeing back here. Okay, in order to communicate with one another, to have an active discussion, to have a class participation, if we're not physically in the same room, then we have to have a mechanism for doing that. Blackboard has a tab on the left-hand side called discussion boards, discussion forums and discussion boards. If you click on that, I've created the first thread in that discussion board. And basically what it is an introduce yourself thread. So in other words, go there and you'll see on Blackboard as assignment 0, you'll see a request that you go to the discussions forums, you click on that particular thread, and you add your your comment to it. You created new, yes.
You tried to document
It didn't work. What happened when you tried it? Did it just not let you create a thread or something like that?
I tried to create a thread.
Okay, I'll try. I'll give it a try. When we get done with this part of the lecture, I'll give it a try and see how it works. But we're going to use that to communicate. In other words, and actually it's part of the class. Your class participation grade will be based on your activity on the discussions board. Because otherwise, I may not ever see you, right? I may not ever know when you're logged on. You may be using some secret name when you log on, and trust me, at my age, I won't remember who you are 6 months from now. So at any rate, that's not really true, but it's getting close. So anyway, so I need you to get used to using that discussion board. We'll make sure that it's working properly. Okay, so for starters, you'll have places there where I'll post questions and answers. I'll put a link there where you can post questions about specific assignments, about what's going to be on an exam, about what questions I should cover in review sessions. So I'll put some specific ones there. I'll also put a general Q&A one there. So you can just put any question you want. You can post anonymously if you want, if you're a little bit timid, right? But functionally, if I don't get to it in a day or two, and you happen to notice, well, a student had a question and you know the answer to it, you can post the answer to it, right? Right? That's great class participation. And you guys can have an exchange about it if you want, if it's not clear and you guys want to debate about it. On the assignments, it's perfectly okay for you to collaborate on the homeworks. Not on the exams, but on the homeworks, it's okay for you to collaborate with one another. Not do each other's homework, I mean collaborate. Okay, so right now, I think this is recording, right? Many times I've thought it's recording and then I was disappointed. It happens a lot less now than it used to in the old days, right? So technology can fail occasionally. Maybe you can't get logged on. Maybe you have a problem with the discussion board. We'll always be able to work that. We've been doing this long enough that I know that if there's a problem with it, we'll get it worked out. Right? We're never going to get painted into a corner. Okay, so I think that's pretty much what we need to go through here. Okay, there's a question was don't panic, right? Keep up with the course and no man left behind as long as he keeps up with the work. Okay, good. Okay, let's take a 5-minute break. How's that? Okay, then I'll do something interesting. So I try and keep you guys awake. Okay, okay, good. Let me see how we're doing online, see if I have any questions. So, you gonna take this course?
No, this is very interesting because I've never taken them that way. And I don't have Blackboard course Blackboard.
Let me pause the recording there so I can chat.
This conference will now be recorded.
It's got me believing it's recording. We'll see later on if it really did. Okay, so on Blackboard, if you go into sessions and you go to session 1, okay, it ever opens. If you go to session 0 is basically what we just did now. If you go into session 1, okay, you'll see there's a bunch of links there. First one there is some lecture material. These videos, what is biostatistics, a brief history of statistics, these are videos, these are trimmed down videos, short videos, maybe 5-10 minutes each, from another professor that I work with, Levi Waldron. Let me talk to you about Levi. Don't go away until I get a chance to talk.
He's wonderful.
Yeah. So these are short videos. I've kind of trimmed down his videos into little segments where you can answer each one of these different questions. And occasionally you'll see me post somebody else's video on there because I think that it's a pretty good explanation and it's pretty comfortable delivering the information. And there's the PowerPoints that go with it usually are on there as well. But for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and jump into, and I will be using that same PowerPoint and going through it. You can follow my version or his version if you want to look at those videos. Okay, but I'm going to jump into our lab session. Lab session is the portion of the class where we actually start to do some things live, online, and physically actually go through the process. And you'll notice that as part of this, one of them is a PowerPoint file where I step through some discussions, and the other part is a series of exercises. And you'll see they're noted, they're numbered. It's not easy for me to rearrange them on Blackboard. There's some little quirks on Blackboard that make it hard for you to add documents in exactly the order that you want to add them in, and they kind of get jumbled up. But they're numbered, You can right click on these. If you're on a Mac, that's option click. You can right click on these. Well, is it control click? Or, yeah, it's control click. Nope. It's control click is a right click. Control click and say save link as, and you can save it to your desktop. In other words, navigate to the desktop and just say save. So if you want to, you can save each one of those 8 files to your desktop. And I'm going to step through them right now. I'm going to do things with them right now. So introduce Excel and SPSS and just the very beginnings of statistics. I'm going to go through them right now. And if you have them on your desktop, you'll be able to open them in Excel or open them in SPSS, and you'll actually be able to do what I'm doing with them too in a window on your own computer. So I've actually done that already, and I'm going to open up the first one. Here we go. Okay. So that's kind of hard to see, so I'm going to make this window a bit bigger. View, zoom. Let's go to 200%. Okay, that's a little easier to see. You know, maybe if we close that light at the back, can one of you like shut that light off back there? Might be a little bit easier to see. I don't think they've changed that bulb in the last 10 years. So it might benefit from that. That's good. Yep, I think so. Yeah. Okay. And again, that's one of the reasons why I encourage you, if you want, you can log on these individual computers using go to meet.me /CUNY Public Health. Go to meet.me /CUNY Public Health, all one, no spaces. What's that? Go to meet, MEET, .me, ME, /CUNY Public Health. Do I still have that up here somewhere? Let me see if I put that, there it is. See right there? Go to meet.me. You don't need the HTTP:// these days. The browsers are smart enough to know how to do that. /CUNY Public Health, all one word. Okay. And then you'll be able, actually, I think if you reboot the computer, it'll log on. Someone left it logged on under their own username or something like that. So if you, or if you just hold down the power key, it'll restart. Or you could also just go to just start another computer. Just turn on another computer. So anyway, okay, so let's take a look at this. This is Excel. Excel opens up in a blank sheet, would normally open up in a blank sheet. I just opened a file that I kind of set up. Normally would look something like this, give you a bunch of options. Whoops, I'm in Word, unfortunately. Hang on. New. Okay, it opened up in a blank sheet with a whole bunch of rows and columns in it. Okay, there was actually, this is called a spreadsheet program because it mimics a kind of record-keeping device that accountants used to use years and years and years ago. You know, if you ever remember in Christmas Story, Bob Cratchit is always already bent over, you know, doing sums and debits and credits and stuff like that with a little quill pen and stuff. And the way that would work is they would literally add on one column might be credits, another column might be debits, and so on and so forth. And then at the very end, they would add up, you know, whatever was a total credits and total debits at the bottom, and they start a new sheet with that at the top, and then start adding credits and debits and so on. So they know how much money they had, and so on and so forth. The only problem with that is that what happened if Bob Cratchit made a mistake on one of those entries? Well, then he's got to redo all the pages that were based on those entries, right? So that was miserable, right? So, but I mean, that's how spreadsheets work. They literally were just columns and rows and so on and so forth. So this mimics that. It's called spreadsheet program because it literally mimics that that kind of paper device. Okay, so what do we have in this spreadsheet program? Well, first of all, the way we call each one of these little boxes, we call those cells. And those cells are identified by their location on the Excel document. So in the rows are numbered 1 through whatever, a very large number. And the columns are identified by letters. So for instance, the one I just pressed into is B5. That's how we would identify that particular cell. Okay, and if I clicked into that one would be C9 and so on. Okay, so what can we put into those cells? Well, believe it or not, as sophisticated a program as this is, there's really only 3 things that you can put into those cells. One of those cells, one of those things is a label. Label is just a word. So in this one, I can put in January, February, March, and so on and so forth. Those are all labels, right? They're just text. The other thing you can put into these is a number. Okay, so that number could be, let's say, for instance, if it's purchasing something or whatever, 123.550, 56.65.3, and 12.1, let's say. So you can put a number in there. Notice that they justify differently if it's a number or a letter. Usually by default, the letters go, if it's a text, it goes to the left justification. If it's a number, it goes right justification. That's handy because if it's money that you're dealing with, you want the decimal places to kind of line up. You can always change that formatting. You can highlight a cell and change the way it's formatted, whether how many decimal places it has, whether it's bold, red, white, and so on and so forth. But that's the basics. You got a label and you got a number. Well, now the third thing that you can have is a function, and that function can be an equation, right? And that equation can take a lot of forms, but even just the simplest, I can say that I want to add two numbers. Let's say I want to add January and February together. If I want to put an equation in there and let SPSS Excel know that this is going to be an equation, all I do is type in an equal sign. The minute I typed in that equal sign, if you look up here, right, if I type in that equal sign, you'll see a change up here, right above the A, right? See the little change in that little bar up there? That's a place where you can follow the equation. If it's a very long equation, it makes it easier to see up there. So that equal sign, I can tell it that I want to do a calculation in there, right, a formula. So I could actually type in 100 plus 23 and hit enter, and it's 123. I can actually just type that in. I can type in equals 34 divided by divided by 12, and it tells me what that's equal to, right? Simple enough. I can also use that in a way that allows me to do operations on other things on the same spreadsheet. Equals, let's say equals, let's say I want it to equal what's in this cell over here for January, plus what's in this cell for February, plus what's in this cell for March, right? All I would have to do is type in C4, the cell, plus C5, plus C6. You'll notice I didn't actually type it in. I took a shortcut there. I didn't mean to take that shortcut this early, but I did. And I hit enter and it adds them all together. I'm going to do it again as if I was going to do this just manually. C4 plus C5 plus C6. So you can do very sophisticated calculations that way. Now, secretly, we can even do more than that. SPSS has a bunch of functions hidden away where if you see this little f of x, function of x, if you click on that, that'll bring up a table called the formula builder that'll show you all the many functions that SPSS has built into you that you can put into that box. Really, only three kinds of things you can put in there: number, a label, and a formula. But the formulas can get very, very complex. So for instance, if I go over here and I bought 10 items at $11.20 each, right? Well, what's my subtotal? Well, I can say my subtotal is equal to, oops, let me hit escape here. Let me make this go away. Okay, so I'm going to go over here, equals. Okay, and now I can tell it that I want to take the amount that's in F3, right? And I can type in F3, oops, times the amount that's in G3. Okay, and it gives me 10 times $11.20, $112, $112, excuse me, right? And I can do this for the next cell, equals, except this time, in order to avoid making a mistake, Excel allows me to tell it which cell I want to work with by just pointing and clicking at it. So I put in an equal sign, and now with that equal sign activated, I go over here and I click on 20, and it tells me that's F4. And then I can tell it I want to multiply, so I put in an asterisk for multiply, and I can go over to this cell and tell it I want to multiply it by what's in this cell, and hit enter. Okay, and it comes up with the answer for me. Another thing that Excel will allow me to do is it will allow me, when I have numbers alongside of each other in a column, it says it's smart enough to understand well, you know, I can see what he's doing with these cells. He's multiplying one by the other, you know, but he's going down each time he's doing this. So if I click over here, you'll see in the that upper left-hand corner, the formula F3 times G3, but the next one is F4 times G4. So the next one obviously is going to be F5 times G5. Excel can do that for you. And it does that by allowing you, I'm going to click into this last one that I did. I'm going to click, hold down, and drag, right? And then I'm going to go up here to edit. And I'm going to say fill down. And what it's going to do is, if that 400 were all by itself with nothing next to it, no two columns next to it, it would just copy 400 into all those other cells. But since it's intelligent enough to see what I'm doing here, when I say fill down, it actually adjusts the formula for each row. Okay? Pretty cool, right? Okay, so there's also functions buried in here that will help you avoid a lot of extra work. So for instance, next thing I wanted, these are all subtotals. Next thing I need to do is add those all together. So I could do it equals H3 plus H3 plus G3 plus H3 plus H4, H5. I could add them all together, or I can use a built-in function called sum, parentheses. And in there, notice it comes up when I put the parentheses or recognize that as a valid function. And now it's waiting for me to enter the information I want to add up. And now, since I don't want to just put plus in each individual cell, I can actually tell it to add up a range of numbers. And that range of numbers in this case is H3 through H7. So I'm going to tell it colon means from H3 to H7, and hit enter. And it adds those numbers up for me. Another way for me to do that, again, because you know it's going to be a little easier, a little less likely to make a mistake, sum, parentheses, and now it's waiting for me to put in that range of numbers. I can, instead of typing those cells in, I can go up to 112, click down and hold, and then drag down, and notice how it fills it in for me. Then lift my hand and hit enter, and it adds it all up together. Okay? Is this new for anybody? Is this like something you haven't done before? It's new? Okay, wow, okay, good. I'm glad I'm doing this then. Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I do this when I propose doing this in a semester, and the feedback I get from other instructors, I don't waste your time doing that. Just move on from that. And you'll see this will come up in some other spot. So that's basically Excel. Now the only thing is that we have many, many, many functions that we're going to be able to work with in Excel. For instance, you can see sum. These are just the ones I used recently. Sum, average, max, minimum. Look, there's abscissa, that's like a geometry, areas, averages, binomial distribution, conversions, counts, just literally counting things, right? There's math, there's all sorts of different kinds of functions in here. There should be a way for me to separate them by group. They're actually grouped. I'm not sure where that's coming up grouped right now, probably because I'm clicked in there something. Okay, all. Look at this. Oh, there you go. So you can, there they are. Here they are at the end, grouped by. For instance, these are all statistical functions. Average, F dot inverse Fisher. These a few of these will make sense here. Most of them are advanced things you don't have to worry about, right? There's accounting stuff in here. You name it, date and time functions, and so on and so forth. There's many, many, many functions that you can take advantage of in Excel. You don't have to learn them all. You only have to learn the few that we're going to be using, right? But you can see that this is a great tool. You can be able to do all sorts of stuff with this, even beyond this course. Okay, let's open up the next file is 2. Remember I told you about that what if situation where I had mentioned that, gee, what am I going to, you know, what is his name? Christmas Story. What is Bob Cratchit that made a mistake on page 1 of his ledger, and now he's on page 5. He has to go back and redo everything all over again, right? Actually, you know, they don't. That's the magic of, anybody ever hear of double entry bookkeeping? Right? They never go back and change a number in double entry bookkeeping. What they do, if they make a mistake, they add another line which corrects the mistake. So you never actually have to go back. But I mean, it's still kind of a pain in the butt because now the record is all screwed up. So you really have to go, when you're trying to track back and figure out what happened, you got to go all sorts of, it's all sorts of a problem. So this second one I call budget. The file name is budget demo. Okay, and I'm gonna blow this up a little bit so we can see it a little bit better. And you can do this on your own with me. You can do it with me or whatever. Okay, so I'm going to take advantage of a few functions that we know right now. For instance, sum equals sum. What's the sum of my total bills each month, my debits? And I'm going to highlight that, and the sum is B4 through B9, and I'm spending $1,740 a month. Well, what's my income? My income is my salary, tutoring. I do a little tutoring on the side, and mom and pop help out when I'm really strapped. So I wish those days were still there, but unfortunately, So, oops, I made a mistake there. Equals sum parentheses, and I'm going to add those all together. And gee, what's the balance here? Well, the balance, where I stand here? Let's see, the amount of money I'm making minus the amount of money I'm spending, right? Well, we got a problem there, right? I'm going under quick, right? So I need to fix a few things here. Well, this is the nice thing about Excel. You can use Excel to try and play around with different scenarios, change things, manipulate things, figure out what if I do this, what if I change that, and so on and so forth. So I said to myself, okay, let me try and save a bit of money here. Let's see, food, maybe, I'll go to the cheap Chinese place instead of an expensive one. So maybe it's 150. I'll take my bike a couple of times a week. So maybe I can save a little money there. So maybe I can get that down to 100. My transportation course, tuition, that's like, got to pay the piper, right? You got to pay tuition. I still owe some money. Gee, I'm really strapped. What if I get a roommate and I split the rent? Well, now I'm in the grave. I got an extra $60 a month. I'm feeling like a king, right? I'm feeling like a Trump. So at any rate, there's $60 a month. So what have I done? I've used Excel to help me see, as I change things, what the reaction would be. And a lot of times you'll do that in Excel. You'll use it as a way to test different scenarios. In fact, this is the way airplanes are designed. What if I get a little bit of weight? What if I can get rid of a little bit of weight here? Or what if I can reinforce the structure here, and so on and so forth, right? I guarantee you, I.M. Pei, who just passed away, right, know how to use a spreadsheet, right? I'm sure he used one every day of his life, right? Because that's what he did. There are many engineering functions in Excel. So you can use it for what if. In fact, that was the first spreadsheet on microcomputers was a program called VisiCalc. And VisiCalc took the market by storm. One of the reasons why when Apple came out with the Apple II, it was buried in a market that had 100 different microcomputers when it first was released, right? It had some advantages. It was color, a lot of them were in color. It was easily upgradable, a lot of them weren't easily upgradable, and so on and so forth. But the real key was there were a couple of guys from Harvard, I think they were, that wrote a program called VisiCalc, was the first microcomputer spreadsheet. And accountants, Wall Street, people on Wall Street, people in real estate, they discovered that this program and what they could do with it, how much time it would save them, and they would buy Apple computers to run this program. So it's really they pay $100 for the program, and they'd have to spend $2,000 for a computer to run the program. But they would buy it. That's what drove Apple sales in the beginning. That's what gave them an enormous advantage over all these other computers. Okay, so let's look at the next one, which is graph demo. Not only can you organize numbers, do calculations, and so on and so forth, but you can also do graphics using SPSS. I'm using Excel. Okay, so let's go up here. I want to load this up. You gonna sneak out on me? Okay, no problem. I'm gonna try and edit it, of course. You'll be able to watch this later. Right.
And my job, they actually use spreadsheets that you were saying before. very complex spreadsheets that were interrelated of like 10, 20, 30 pages for each frozen food, given you buy in a supermarket, where everything step by step was taken and fed into the computer and taken.
Oh, no kidding. So you can do the formula. You can see the formulations. You can see if they reduce the fat in this one or how much cholesterol. Yeah. Pages. Yeah. Yeah.
Which you can also do were interconnected.
Right.
And this, one mistake and really blew the product, but that's how Excel do its thing. So creating food items, how they're testing this actually cooking, preparing this frozen food packaging in the store is through the frozen, but not so many years ago, through spreadsheets that were doing, and I had to learn, which I've now completely forgotten, this how to interconnect, which would be very helpful.
Yeah. You can also
for this job,
yeah. Yeah. Not only that, but you can actually take a table, take a section of a Excel spreadsheet. You can take a table and put it into a Word document, and you can go back to that table in the Excel file and say something changes. You got to change a number in that table, and it'll update all your other Word files that use that table.
You have to.
Yep. That's right. You have to link them.
It's a very good thing.
Yeah.
And later work, they clearly have benefited a lot of people.
Yeah, this is the really what you're learning here is this is an immensely useful tool for a lot of things. So even beyond what we're going to use it for in this course, this is a really valuable tool for your futures to be able to do this kind of stuff, use this program. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
So I would thank you.
Take care, Diane. Okay, so now here's these numbers that you see here, they're mold spore counts. For instance, in environmental occupational health, we occasionally test the air. We use these devices. We use an air pump, and we use a little cassette with a little, basically it's a filter. It's really actually a little glass slide that has sticky stuff on it. We suck air through it, and when dirt in the air, particles in the air impact it, they get stuck on it. Some of those are mold spores. So you take a 15 liter per minute air pump, you suck air through this mold spore trap. Mold spores get stuck on this thing after 10 minutes, 150 liters. You take the mold spore trap, you send it to a lab, and a microbiologist opens the thing up, puts it under a microscope, and he actually counts the number of mold spores that got trapped on there and attempts to identify them. So this is what these results are. So if you look at this, in column B, we have the location, outdoor, a couple of samples took outdoors. Then we took some samples in a fifth floor receptionist, whatever that is, a conference room, a hallway, fifth floor finance offices, fifth floor, probably one of these was a complaining area, the other one maybe wasn't complaining. So we got three areas. We got outdoors, we got an area where they had some complaints, and we have an area where they didn't have any complaints. And we want to compare them. Right. Well, I'm looking at the numbers and yeah, it looks like this is this higher than that. It's kind of hard to judge this, especially if there's a lot of numbers. This isn't fairly that many numbers. Let's say I want to display this graphically. One of the things I can do is highlight for Excel. I can highlight the data that's stored on Excel. And notice that it's formatted in a certain way, in two columns side by side with the titles at the top and so on. And from there, I can go into Excel and I can tell it, I want to do something with this. I want to, where is it now? This is a new version of Excel for me on the Mac, so it might take me a little bit to find out where this stuff is. How about insert? Yeah, I think it's an insert. The chart. No. Here we go. If you notice over here, there's a whole area where you have tables, where you have graphs, and so on and so forth. I'm going to click on this one, and I'm going to say I want to make a column graph, right? A bar chart, which is columns. Okay, so I'm going to click on. I'll use that one right there. I'll click on that and see what I get. Oh, look at this. Now look at this information displayed graphically. It's really easy to see how much higher the mole spore counts are outdoors than they are indoors in either location, and also that there's no dramatic difference between the two indoor locations. So look at all the information that I got there that was immediately visible to me, that was much harder to read and interpret when we were looking at it that way. Okay, why did this work so easily? It worked so easily because I knew how to format the data, store the data in Excel, and highlight it so I could literally do this. Let's see if I can't do another kind of chart. Let's see 3D. Entered at the top of each individual bar so you can see what the numbers actually are, and so on and so forth. You can do pie charts, bar charts, 3D charts, so on and so forth, every kind of chart that you would ever imagine in Excel. So there's another use for Excel, being able to display complicated numerical data graphically so it's easy to interpret. That's another one of the things that we're going to be learning during the course of the semester. Okay, so I'm going to go move on to the next one here, number 4, which is statistical functions. I'm going to double click on that. And I'm going to blow this up so we can see it a little bit better. Okay, view, zoom, percent. Okay. How many of you guys remember your statistical functions? Mean, median, mode. What's the mean? Middle. Well, yeah, kind of the middle, right? It's the average. It's the arithmetic average. How about the median? Say middle number. Okay, good. The median is really the middle number. In other words, if you have 10 values in a row, the median is literally the middle number. I just said something weird though, didn't I? The middle number among 10. There's even number of numbers. There's no middle number, right? So the median is the average of the two middle numbers, like the 5th and 6th number, right? If we had 11 numbers, then we could have a middle value. So the median is just the middle number. The mean is the average of all of those numbers. Okay, what about the mode? What's the mode? Anybody remember what that is? The mode is the value that occurs most frequently. Okay, so like if I had 3 people, if these were ages, or if these are blood pressures, if I had 3 people that had a certain, like blood pressure 80, the mode would be 80, the most frequent value that occurs. Minimum, maximum, that's no secret to that. It's the smallest number, the biggest number. The range is the difference between the biggest number and the smallest number. Okay, so let's give that a try right now. So it would be really convenient if SPSS had functions that would do this for me automatically. So here's a sample of 10 people's blood pressures, right? And which is in lower number. So it's not diastolic, right? It's a lower number. Diastolic blood pressures, right? Okay, good. That's why I like having health people around with me so they can keep me straight on this stuff. So what is the average of those numbers, the mean? Well, in fact, that we don't have a function mean. So if I put in parentheses, nothing happens. We do have a function average. Same thing. Parentheses, and now it's waiting for me to tell it what numbers I want the average of. And I can just simply highlight A1 through A10. Hit enter, and the average of those values is 82.5. Well, how about the median? Okay, let's try that. Median. And in fact, there is a function called median. And I can highlight that. Whoops. Kind of screwed that up. Parentheses. Again, click, highlight, and close parentheses and enter. Median's 80, a little bit different. How about the mode? Parentheses. Okay, let's see what the mode is. Click, enter, and it's 80, right? Because you see why it's 80. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 people in it whose blood pressure happened to be 80. How about the minimum? What's the lowest value there? Well, I can kind of look through. If it's only 10 numbers, it's easy enough for me to look. What if there were 2,000 numbers? That'd be a little bit more difficult, right? But I'm going to do it here in a moment. Minimum, right? I'm going to do it here in a moment. I could have done it just as fast for 2,000 numbers as for 10 numbers. And the maximum, there's a function called max. Okay, and you can look these up by clicking on f of x, or as we go through the semester, I'll be pointing them out to you, and you can just learn the ones that we need to use. And the range is equal to the maximum minus the minimum. Simple enough, right? So we have functions built in here that as we learn these functions and how to apply them, they're going to help us do some important calculations that are in statistics that we're going to be repeating over and over and over again. It's going to save us a lot of time and effort. So I'm going to go close this. And then I'm going to go to the next one. Let me see what this one is. 7. Okay. Okay, I'm going to open this one. I'm going to open number 7. Okay, those are pretty much the same numbers as I had before, right? So notice I put BP on the top to represent blood pressure, and then I listed the 10 numbers, right? I put them in here purposely in that format because, by the way, if I want to, I can format these so that they are centered. I can make them bold and so on and so forth. If I right click, if I right click or control click on the Mac or I click on the PC and go down to format cells, I can do all sorts of interesting things. If it ever comes up, there it is. Okay, I can play with the alignment. I can play with the number of decimal places. I'm going to put 1. I can put, if it's currency, I can have it display a symbol. If it's a time and date, I can tell it how to display the time and date. I can put a border around it. I can change the font and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to bother with that right now because I'm not concerned about that. I'm going to take this file. Remember, for instance, in average, I said average, parentheses, and then I highlighted the numbers to give me what the average of those values were. So we already just did this. Well, I'm going to take this Excel file and I'm going to save it all by itself on my desktop. Save as, and you may have already put it there. Actually, if it's already there, it's probably going to tell me don't bother. Actually, I think these files are in a folder, so I think it's going to let me do that. Yeah, so I saved it. Now I'm going to close the file. I'm going to leave Excel running, but I'm going to close the file. The reason why I did that is because I'm about to take that file and import it into the program called SPSS. Okay, SPSS doesn't like working with files that are already opened in a different program for a number of reasons. Like they could, the other program could change the files and so on and so forth. Right. So what I'm going to do instead now is I'm going to open SPSS. I have SPSS open down on my computer here, and you have it on your computers as well. There it is, that little thing with the sigma. I'm going to open up this program SPSS. When it opens up, I'm going to get a box that's kind of a template. This is the same version that you would wind up working with. Again, I'm going to see if there's a way to get it for free, but I will be back to you within a day or two about that because I really want you to download it and get it running so you can do some work with it pretty quickly. Okay, so it comes up with this window where it asks us, do you want to open a file that we opened before? You're creating a new data set. You don't really need this. In fact, if you want, on your version, you can click don't show this dialog in the future. It's kind of like a little template thing that comes up when you open a lot of Microsoft Word documents. I'm going to close it, but I'm not going to tell it don't come up again. But there's 2 views that I can have here of this document that I just opened, blank document. I opened up in SPSS. If you look up there, you'll notice that on the bottom, you can have a data view or you can have a variable view, right? I'm going to put it in the data view. You can switch back between the 2 views. You see them there? Right down at the bottom. If you can't see it, you can look up here if you're having a problem with it on your own computer. So data view and variable view. So I'm going to go up here. You can also go up here to the view and switch between variable view and data view. See a little bit of a change. Again, I'm going to leave it on the data view for now. And what do you see here? You see what looks very much like a spreadsheet, like in Excel. It's not a spreadsheet. It doesn't do labels and formulas and in the cells and so on and so forth. All that is a place to store information. Each cell is going to have either a number or a word, some letters or something like that. Each cell is going to contain information that we put into it. But we don't use the cells to do calculations. Okay, so how am I going to, I want to get my data in here from that Excel file. I could have copied and pasted it in here if I really wanted to, but actually a better way probably is go up to File, say New, say Open, because we're going to open an existing file. Open Data. So I'm going to open a data file, and I want it to be that particular data file. So that data file should be, I don't see it. I don't see the Excel file here on my desktop. The reason why you don't see it is because if you look down here to files of type, well, right now, all it's looking for is SPSS data files, which are .sav files. We haven't created any, so there's none on the desktop, right? So it won't see Excel files, won't see any files at all for that matter, except for those .sav files. But I can change that. I can click over here and notice that I can tell it to see many different kinds of files. I can tell it to see Excel files. I can tell it to see SAS files. Anybody know what SAS is? It's another software program like SPSS. Right? Many different organizations prefer data, they use different programs. Department of Health happens to use SAS. DEP, I think, uses SPSS. So on and so forth. They choose their own programs. There's a handful, maybe 3 or 4 SPSS, SAS that are popular to do statistical analysis. So we're learning SPSS as it happens. So I'm going to go over here and I want to see Excel files. So I'm going to click on Excel files and notice now I can see all of the Excel files that happen to be on my desktop. Okay, and the one I'm interested in is number 7. That's the one that I just that is an Excel file, SPSS Intro 2. So I'm going to highlight that and I'm going to say open. SPSS is going to realize it's not one of its files and it's going to ask me to examine the file to make sure it's got it right. Okay, and first thing it's going to tell me is it sees data between A1 and A11. That sounds right, right? We had the BP and then we had the 10 numbers. Read the variable name from the first row of data. If that box is checked, it's going to input this data so that the BP is the name of the variable, blood pressure. And then the data is all the 10 numbers after that. If that's unchecked, it's going to think BP is part of the data, right? Which is not right. It's not part of the data, so it's the data name. So I'm going to click BP. I'm going to click make sure that you understand that's the variable name, not actual data. And then I'm going to click OK, and SPSS will import that into its format. And what happens now is a output window comes up. It got buried there, but I'll bring it forward. An output window comes up that describes in SPSS's own language what it just did. Oh, it went to Tony's desktop and it opened that file, imported that file, and it said to get all of them and so on and so forth, and then execute it and then bring the window to the front, right? You don't have to worry about that, right? But that output window comes up, and that output window is going to be useful to us because SPSS is going to go back to that output anytime we do a calculation or run a statistical test. That's where it's going to put it, that same window. So there we go. There's the data that we just looked at. IBM SPSS is a little bit misbehaved. It doesn't behave like most Mac programs because most Mac programs, I can go in here to view and tell it to enlarge the cell size, and I can just like squish my fingers apart on the trackpad here and make it blow up. I can't do that with SPSS. That's a little bit rude that way. And they've never fixed it so that it can do that. If you look behind me, it's going to be a little bit hard to read. That's why I encourage you to like get it onto your screen to do it yourself as well, right? But the 10 numbers are there, right? So now I want to tell SPSS to do a calculation based on those, a statistical calculation based on those numbers. I want to know descriptive statistics for those numbers, mean, median, that kind of thing. So I'm going to go up here to analyze. And I'm going to say, go to descriptive statistics. And then I'm going to go to descriptives. I'm going to bypass frequencies. I'm going to go to descriptives. And the box is going to come up and tell me, these are the variables or the columns I see on your sheet. There's only one column, so you only see one there. If we have more variables like blood pressure, age, BMI, gender, you'd see many columns listed there. And you can tell it, I want to do this work, I want to do these calculations based on this specific variable, blood pressure. So that means in order to tell it to do that, you move it into the variables box. So now it knows which variable to work with. So I'm going to go into options here. And in options, oh, look, it's already going to do the mean, standard deviation, minimum, maximum, variance, range, and so on and so forth. If you don't know what those mean, don't worry about them. We're going to be getting to that. I'm going to click continue, and I'm going to click OK. And it's going to do those calculations for me. Bingo, here's a box that comes up, brings the output table out to the front, and there is our calculations. Blood pressure, there are 10 subjects. The range was 70 to 95, so the range is 25, the difference between them. The mean is 82.5, and then there's some other statistics as well. So we've basically done what we're going to do with Excel a lot quicker and a lot less work. I'm going to go to descriptive statistics. There's another one. If I go down here to explore, this is another version of this where I can go analyze, descriptive statistics, explore. If I move BP into the dependence list, the variable I want to work with, and click OK, it'll actually do many more statistics for me than even that. So here, mean is 82.5. There's something called confidence interval. We'll learn about that later. Now we got the median, we got the variance, we got minimum, maximum, we got the range 25. We got and some other information as well. We even got something called a box plot. This box plot tells us that the lowest value is 70. See that little, they call that a feather. And the highest value is 95. And then this box that's here, that box represents the middle 50% of the values. And they are between 80 and 90. That's called the interquartile range. Again, something that as we progress is going to be coming up again. Okay? And notice that all of this is stored in this output document. Now, you know that box plot, that's going to come, I'm going to need to do a report on this. That box plot's going to come in really handy in that report. Let me open up Microsoft Word. Okay, here's Microsoft Word. Let me open up a document. What do I got here? That's recent. Here's syllabus. Here's the syllabus. Make believe syllabus is the report. Okay, well, you know, I need that box plot. I need that in my report. I need it right here. So I'm going to go to that box plot. I'm going to highlight it. Okay, notice I have you can see it's framed. Okay, and I'm going to go Command C in the Mac, Control C on the PC, meaning copy. You could also just go up here to edit and say copy. Right, then I'm going to go back to my document, put my cursor where I want to insert that, and I say paste or Control V. And there's my table or my chart in my document. So now, if you do statistical analysis on data that you're working with, you have a mechanism of getting those tables and those charts that you've created into the documents that you're creating. So now you have something valuable for you in future courses when you're doing reports and you have to analyze data. So you don't have to draw these things, manually. You can actually get the programs to create them for you, and then you can take and copy that data into anywhere you want. Okay, and matter of fact, let me go back to my output window. How about, really would help if I had this table there too. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to say copy. I go back to my Word document. I'm going to go to this page, and I'm going to say, okay, paste it there. Edit, paste. And there's my table is in there too. Okay, also, you can say edit, paste special. And in some of your documents, you may be able to paste this. Some of your versions of Word, you may be able to paste this as a picture instead of a unformatted text. And so you'll have some flexibility. Apparently, this is not working on this particular one right now. Maybe it may be this. I've just upgraded this version of Word. Maybe I didn't set something up that would have made that easier for me. But at any rate, so that's how SPSS works. SPSS is a super version of the statistical package in Excel. So it really does a lot of work for us very efficiently. On Blackboard here, down at the bottom here, while we're talking about graphics and how efficiently you can communicate statistical information, very complicated statistical information graphically. There's a great video here. It's a TED presentation by a fellow by the name of Dr. Hans Rosling. I think he passed away recently, but hopefully not, because brilliant guy, really interesting guy. And he's a pretty funny guy too. So I'm going to play this up here rather than on my computer, because it's just going to work better for this room. And I'm going to pause the recording. So if you're listening to this at home, right, open this link.